we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck.
Here, you kitty. Hey, everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. You are on the lifeboat. Riding on the lifeboat, riding on the lifeboat. Tell you something. It doesn't feel like spring at 4:45 this morning in northern Nevada. And do you know that my wretched cat got out last night? I went into the garage. I forgot the squirrel was out in the garage. I let her back in. Last night I did a live feed for members only. And I did it for a few hours. I forgot, or like an hour and a half or something. And I forgot Squirrel Nut Zipper was in the garage. So I went out the garage and I got the back door from the garage to the backyard. And I opened it because it required, I had to open it to move something. And Squirrel just zipped out and the lights were off and everything else. And it's difficult to get. By the time I went and got a flashlight, Squirrel had gone under the door from the side yard to the front yard. It was about maybe 5 inches high, 4 inches high, but she managed to squeeze her head through that little gap. And she went outside. So I had to go and try to find Squirrel last night, and I was in a panic. I cannot tell you how much. You don't think about it until you think the cat's gone, and then oh man, it just messed with me. But I've got her back. You can hear her meowing, which she'll be doing through the entire show because Squirrel's in one of those moods this morning. Probably because I yelled at her a little last night. You know, I'm not the kind to beat an animal, but I did tell her she was a pain in my backside a few times. When I found her, I said, oh, and then you got to pretend that you're happy with her because you want to go, oh, and the cat will just, So I was like, oh, come here, cat. So scared the hell out of me. I don't want to, to the point where I just could not imagine life without Squirrel. I really couldn't. She has become a very large part of my happiness. And life without Squirrel would just be miserable. So I want to start off today's show. There you are. Come here. I want to start off today's show by saying hello to a new friend of mine named Wyatt. And Wyatt is he's a New Englander, as I am, and he's from the other side of the Connecticut River. He lives in the beautiful state of New Hampshire. It's a great state, and he's about 116 days. Sober somewhere in there, and he's just sent me a beautiful email that really touched me deeply, and I'm proud as hell of Wyatt. I'm proud as hell of him. He did some inpatient, now he's doing some intensive outpatient programs, and he's making it happen. He's being bold, and he said, I thought about sending this email for a long time. He said, but now I'm going to get bold. I'm going to send it. And it was really, really a cool email. And it touched me deeply. And it got me thinking back to 115 days. So I did what I do these days when I start thinking back to 115 days, and I went back to 115 days. I got out a journal that is going to be 8 years old shortly, and I started to read through. And in the very beginning of my journey, I would write down at the top of the journal day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and I probably did that for the entire first year. So I got back to today 115, 116, 117. And I was journaling at that point that I just wanted my life back. I wanted my life back. I didn't want heroin to be a part of who I was. I wanted my life back. And it got me reading, and it got me reading more. And I continued to sort of deep dive on this journal. And I remember the day that it hit me like a ton of bricks, that what life did I want back? I didn't have a life, not ever. I mean, maybe when I was 13 or 14 or something, but those, she's chewing on my finger. Look at that. Ow, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Huh? I'll let you out. So there was not a point in my life that was worth trying to get back to. But I think a lot of times it's a term that I hear all the time in emails from people who say, man, I got to get booze out of my life. I want my life back. Or I got to get this out of my life. I want my life back. And it's not what we want. We're not trying to get our life back. We want a new life. M. Hunt, good to see you. I'm glad you're eating breakfast. 3 meals a day, people. Does wonderful things for you. It really does. Does wonderful things for you. Although my breakfast this morning, I was going to have to wait. I only got about 3 hours of sleep, and I cheated. I actually hit a snooze alarm, which happens to me about once a year these days. But I hit the snooze alarm, and I was running to make this thing happen. Yes, trophy in a box for Wyatt. I'm proud as hell of Wyatt. I really am. I am proud as hell of Wyatt, and I'm really glad that he reached out to me, and it got me thinking, and it really got me, onto this subject. So the question becomes, are you trying to get back to who you were, or are you trying to create a new human being? And you know something? There are people, Spirit of, what does that say? Spirit, Faith, End Times from the UK. Welcome from the UK. We've got a pretty good contingency from the United Kingdom. So you're in good company. I don't know how many of them do the morning show. We got a lot of UK representation here on the Lifeboat. So welcome. Glad to see you. I don't think I've ever said hello to you. Happy that you're here. So for me, as I'm reading through this journal, and I'm looking at, I had a much better coach than you guys do, at least in the beginning. Anyway, I'm going to be doing a whole lot better, I promise you. But I had a really good coach, and he was a life coach as much as he was a mentor, and he was talking to me about things that I should be journaling about. And it was at day 130 something that Q said to me, are you trying to get your, you want your life back? I said, of course I want my life back. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And he got this big grin on his face, which by the way is always crooked. He had, when he grins and he knows he's got one on you, like he thought of something and you didn't, the grin is on one side. But he said, okay, I want you to journal about the life that you're trying to get back. Tell me about how great it was before heroin. And I remember putting the pen to the page and starting to try to write. What life was I trying to get back? When was it great? And I started looking back through. Now, you may have gotten out of high school and out of college, and you used to do a little drinking, and then the drinking became more drinking, and you found yourself out of control. And maybe there's a time before you became addicted to drugs that were great, and you'd like to get back to them. I didn't have that. I really didn't. Now, That's not to say that every single minute that I was doing drugs was awful, because there were some great times. There really were. In the very beginning of my drug use, and when I was really young, there were some times that were fantastic. I look back on the early days of Spanx Calhoun. I was a drug addict, but I was being a good father, and I was, caring about my family, and I wasn't putting money and everything else before that. And but the question becomes, how much do you need to change who you are? And you have to answer that question. I absolutely can do nothing to help you answer that question. I can recommend some things that you can do in your journal to help you answer that question. But you got to figure out, how much do you need to change? It was very easy for me because I needed to change everything. When I did my description of how people would describe me, I started going through and saying, when was there a time in my life that people would have described me differently? And the answer was when I was 13. Truthfully, I hit an age in my early teens, maybe the first 2 or 3 years of being a teenager, where my defining characteristic became the fact that I did a ton of drugs. That if I had the ability to get high on anything, I was going to be doing it. That is how people knew me. That was it. That was who I was. Hello, Paul Sargent. Good to see you. So I had to start from a completely clean slate in designing who I wanted to be. So Tommy Scoville is 8 years old. And I mean that. I mean, as most of you know, I was not born Tommy Scoville, right? Tommy Scoville was a name that I was going to use to protect my family from all of the embarrassment of me coming on here and talking about all the things that I did. Most importantly, Spanx and Cedar. And then the trolls, of course, outed my real name, my birth name and all of that. But an amazing thing happened. There was never a time in my life that I thought, even for a second, as I was doing the lifeboat, that I would ever want to get rid of my name. The Tommy Scoville persona, it's just a name. It's still, I am, the exact same person. I don't come on here and put on an act, but it's like a stage name, because I didn't want my kids to have to deal with, your dad's the guy that does did all the bank robberies and all of that stuff. And I didn't want weirdo trolls sending naked pictures to my kid, but that happened. But it's funny because there was a very big difference between Brett, the guy that I was born, and Tommy Scoville. And it got me thinking. Wyatt primarily got me thinking. And I started to try to figure out what the difference between the two of them are. What is the big difference? Because I'm the same person. Again, I don't play a part. You know what occurred to me? Tommy Scoville's never gotten high. Tommy Scoville has never gotten high. In fact, Tommy Scoville has never even gotten drunk. I mean, he's had a couple beers, but he's never drank enough to where he was drunk. I've never done anything under that name. And there was a period of time that probably was about 6 or 7 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, where I realized that the day is coming, and now it's coming really fast because I have an attorney that's handling it, by the grace of God and angels, that I'm soon going to be off of any kind of owing the government any more of my time. And for that reason, oh, you happy cat, for that reason, I'll be able to legally change my name if I want to, and I'm probably going to. And the reason is, I'm proud as hell of Tommy Scoville. When I come on here and I say, you know what, I'm not a good person, but I'm trying to be, Tommy Scoville's a pretty good person. It occurred to me last night while I was reading some emails from some people that I'm not a bad guy. I have a very bad past, but Brett was not such a good dude. And there's a lot of things that I did under that name that I still wrestle with shame. And I don't know if we've talked about this on the lifeboat before, but there's a big difference between shame and guilt, right? Guilt is something that is within you, right? You feel guilty for things that you do. Shame is the what you feel about how others view the things that you've done. And to be honest, I don't have a whole lot of shame. You know, the things that I did have created a person and shaped a person who's doing something with his life that I think is a pretty decent thing. So I'm not wrestling with a whole lot of shame, but I am definitely wrestling with guilt still. You know, inside for the things that I did when I was Brett. You don't have to change your name. You don't. But the new you has never done drugs. Has the new you ever lied to anybody? Has the new you ever given somebody your word and then broken it? These are questions that I stayed up later than I should have last night writing. And I'll be honest, Tommy's killing it. I mean, Tommy Scoble is really a guy that I'd like to hang out with. Brett, not so much. So create the person that you can be proud of. I was about to say, how the hell can it be? But the reason that it's, I don't know if you can hear the clock dinging, but I forgot that I've been starting these puppies 15 minutes early. So it gets back to the concept of phoning it in. If you have missed any recent lifeboats, then you may have missed the fact that I talk a lot recently about phoning in aspects of your life, not attacking the parts of your life that you can attack. There's a big difference between living and living. So since I stopped phoning it in, I have been trying to do a damn live stream for members. And it is a very difficult thing to set up. A members only live stream. I can't do it like this. This is using StreamYard. I am not smart enough, apparently, with computers to be able to figure out how to do this exact same thing and just do it for members. So I have to go through YouTube and do that platform because it opens a different kind of window that enables me to customize it. And I got an email from someone last night that said, you know, it bummed them out that the subject matter and things, they said, you know, that's something that would help people that aren't members. And you're absolutely right, it would. The things that I'm doing right now for members only, first of all, the members have it coming because they've stood by me while I didn't do much for them at all. And they continued to fund me paying for people to get sober on medical assisted treatment. And I wasn't doing videos. I wasn't doing anything. I just said, I've been phoning it in. So last night, the live stream that we did, I started to talk to members about things that will absolutely change the lifeboat 180 degrees if I start doing those for everybody. Because I spent the largest portion of my life that I had a real job. I was a public speaker, and I talked about how to make money. That was my subject matter every single time I spoke, with the exception of the last, 7 months as a public speaker. I talked about, I was working for a charity and I was raising money for them. But every other time I stepped on stage, and I stepped on stage a lot, maybe not as much as M. Hunt, because what we did was a little different, but I spent a lot of time on stage. And every time I was up there, I was talking about how to greatly change your financial life. If you want to change your financial life because you want to buy things, then you probably are going about it the wrong direction. If you want to change your financial life so that you don't have to think about money ever again. See, the trouble is a lot of people start to make money, and if this new you starts to follow a game plan, then things like money start to be something that you have a lot more of. There was a period of time in my life where I don't care how much money I made, there wasn't going to be any money in my pocket. I mean, I could leave the house with $2,000 or $3,000 in my pocket, but I was going to blow every single penny of that every single day. I had no control over my life, not any aspect of it. So now you're going to find yourself with a little bit of money in your pocket. And I have watched this distinctly two directions with people who get sober and they start to accumulate some money and some things. They either become really, really frugal. I was going to say cheap, but that's not a nice word. They become very frugal. They do not waste one dime or $1 on anything. They start to think about how much money that they've wasted on drugs and alcohol, and they won't waste $1 on anything. Or they go the exact opposite. They get into this, I can now own all kinds of cool stuff. People, what we're trying to do is we're trying to replace what throws the dopamine switch in your brain. So the question becomes, what is the new you going to do to throw that switch? Right? Base camp is not getting high. As you start to climb from base camp, what you're searching for is a way to throw the switch on the receptors that get you high without the use of a chemical. How are you going to throw the switch? How does the new you throw that switch? And it's dangerous because all of a sudden, man, I got a little money in my pocket. I could go shopping. You realize shopping is a switch throwing mechanism. It's not an effective one, by the way, at all. But a lot of people get addicted to shopping, viciously addicted to shopping. There was a time in my life where I was addicted to it. Yeah, I had a $3,000 a day habit at one point. I really did. M. Hunt, when I first started doing opiate, what do I care? When I first started doing heroin, it was, I started to, the very first time I did it, I did tar. But when I first got addicted, I was buying powdered heroin. It was $320 to $350 a gram. And I wasn't snorting it and I wasn't shooting it. I was putting powdered heroin on tinfoil, lighting it, breathing in the vapor. And I say vapor because it's not really smoke, it vaporizes. But anyway, I was doing I started sucking down unbelievable amounts of this stuff. And you go from 1 gram to 2 grams to 3 grams because what happens, right? We talk about this all the time now. Your brain says too much of a good thing. So this much dope comes in. We can't keep releasing this much dopamine. Believe it or not, your brain's trying to protect you. That's what tolerance is. Your brain says, man, he can't have this much feel-good chemical running around his brain. It's going to destroy him. We got to protect the host. So he keeps giving us 1 gram of this powdered stuff, and then we release all this chemicals. It's going to kill him if we keep doing this. So if he gives us that 1 gram, we'll give him half as much, and maybe he'll back off. But of course, that's not what we do. We do more dope, and we do more dope, and we do more dope. So yeah, I got to a point where I was smoking, 8, 10 grams a day. When I said that I had a 7 gram a day habit, that was at the end of the run. And it was at the end of the run because I was doing the vast majority of it in a needle. I would smoke the first of the day. And that was because my hands would shake so bad that there was no way that I could make the process work. So I would get up and smoke 1 gram, 1.5 grams so that I wouldn't have the shakes. And then I could spend an hour trying to find a vein. And once that happened, then the day just started to go. And dope got a lot cheaper. But yeah, there was a time where at the max I would buy a pedazo, which was 25 grams a piece, 25 grams. And it would last me 2 days, 2.5 days. I was really, really in a bad way. Yeah, tolerance is definitely a money issue for a lot of drugs, and it is also just it's a sign that we're doing something wrong. If your body's trying to protect you from how much good stuff is getting pushed out into your brain, then we're doing something wrong. So it's a pretty good sign that it's time to back off. However, we're not those people. If we were, we wouldn't be riding on the lifeboat, riding on the lifeboat. We'd be watching some other channel. M. Hunt said he would like to do something that makes him happy. Making money, doing something that he loves. That would throw the switch. I'm telling you, rock solid. Rock solid. And you know what? Some people some people villainize anything that even could even be remotely looked at like it might be greed. Are you ready for a speech that's just going to bum out a lot of people? I'll get some hate mails and some emails. And greed is a great, great emotion. Now, before you hang up on me, you better hear me out. But greed is a great emotion. And I don't mean the greed for making more money. But there's only one emotion you can absolutely 100% predict, and it's greed. So if you learn how that works, you can use it massively to change your life. When, like this morning, I told you, the email by Wyatt absolutely inspired me. When the most famous Wyatt that ever walked the planet was walking around, right? Wyatt Earp. Life expectancy was about 40. 40. How did it get all the way up to 80 something? Well, because we're greedy. Greed for more life. Greed for more time with the people you love. Greed. It is an emotion that clarifies and makes things very, very clear. Now, there's bad greed. There's bad greed. You know, if you're Scrooge McDuck and you want to fill a room with cash and swim in it, you're a jackwagon. But if you want to have enough cash so that you can spend all day with your kids, there's nothing wrong with that. There isn't. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to make enough money so that you can make your neighbor think, I got a lot more than you, then you're an ass. But if you want to make enough money so that you never have to argue with somebody that you love about the fact that you can't pay the bills, that's heroic. That's heroic. And since caveman days, the first time that one of those cavemen came home with a really shiny, perfect rock, greed was invented. It's an emotion that we see 2-year-olds affected with. Can you predict love? Yeah, between a son and a mom, between a mother and child, you can predict love. Father-daughter, father-son, like those things can be predicted. The rest of it, not so much. But greed absolutely can be predicted. Everybody would like to have a little bit more, and that's not a bad thing. It's not. The most misquoted part of the Bible, the one that I believe in, is that money is the root of all evil. It doesn't say that anywhere in that book. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have enough money so that you do not have to worry about money. That's a beautiful thing. But if you want to have money because it's life's report card, you're a jackass. Plain and simple. You ever seen the bumper sticker that says, the man who dies with the most toys wins? Really, it was a 1980s bumper sticker. And then the 80s were just that. They were that generation. It was the generation of greed. But the person who dies with the most toys, you ever seen a hearse with a U-Haul truck behind it? You don't take anything with you but your soul. And when you die and you leave this planet, how much money you made will have absolutely nothing of any meaning to you in any way. I remember when I was putting together the ounce of prevention, which I've talked about here, but I used to go into schools. The idea was, it never really got off the ground, but we did a few test markets. And then the test market, we would go in and talk to these people about, we talked to kids about drugs and talk to parents about how to raise drug-free kids and all of that. Hold on one second. But the 80-20 ratio still exists. 20% of workers create 80% of production. Absolutely 100% right. Make no mistake, you're 100% right. I used to be that person, honestly. In almost every company that I ever worked for, I was the person that created 80% of whatever was going on with the company. But I didn't get paid that way. And I mean, I made a lot of money. I made a ton of money, more money than anybody should be paid to do anything. But I always felt a little pissed because I felt like if I'm bringing in 80% of the revenue in this country, I should be paid more. But I'm sorry, I was squirreling off. When I went in to talk to parents, I remember the first time I ever did one of those test markets. I was in Connecticut, and I'm not much for writing scripts because it required writing. But I remember walking through the parking lot, and I'm telling parents how to raise drug-free kids. You know why I was in the parking lot? I was doing heroin, right, in a rent-a-car. But as I'm walking across the parking lot, it was packed. I saw a Datsun B210 that you could read a newspaper through the rust holes in the door. And it was parked with its front bumper this far away from a Ferrari Dino, a 1972 Ferrari Dino. And I thought, wow, pretty wide, financial discrepancy here in this town. So when I got on stage, I couldn't get it out of my head. And I said to the people, I just saw a Datsun B210, and it was parked right next to a Ferrari Dino. I got news for you. When you die, it's not going to make a crap bit of difference whether you drove a Datsun B210 or a Ferrari Dino. It's not going to make a crap bit of difference whether you wore a Timex or a Patek Philippe. It's not. I love watches, but it's not going to make a bit of difference. But if you did something to affect the life of a child in a positive way, it's going to mean something. Can you affect the life of your child in an easier fashion if you cannot pay the bills or if you do not worry about paying the bills? If you pass and you leave your kids with a good head start, that's a good thing. It really is. It's a great thing. It's a noble thing. But it shouldn't be the most important thing. And everything in life is a balance. And that balancing act will be found out by this. When you start journaling, you will write down and you will realize the things that you're doing that are stupid, the goals that you have that are ridiculous. But if you just do them up here, the same thing doesn't happen. How do I know that? Because I didn't pick one of these up for 46 years. 46 years, I'm not exaggerating. I got out of high school and I didn't write again until I was 46. Not for any reason. Because writing just made me feel stupid. And if I don't, my emails are 5 sentences, and there's a reason for that. Right? If I send you a 5-sentence email, it's not that I don't love you. It's that I still am not really comfortable with my ability to write versus my ability to speak. I can get my point across when I speak. I can't get the same point across when I write. And that makes me feel deficient. It makes me feel like a monkey trying to do a math problem. So if by some chance you get really long emails from me, consider yourself blessed because I don't really write long emails, But I'm not going to, and the reason that I'm bringing up the money thing is because the new series that I'm doing for members is on how to make money. And I don't want this to get clouded. If I do this for the entire world, this channel isn't going to be the lifeboat anymore. It's going to be the greed boat. And I have no intention of letting that happen. I want the lifeboat to be about teaching people how to get sober. But if you get sober and you become a member, then let's take it to the next level. And if money is an issue in your life, I spent decades telling people how to make money. I made thousands of people financially secure. I made hundreds of people millionaires, and I made at least one a billionaire. Well, he made himself a billionaire, but by listening to something that I was teaching from the front of the room. So if I'm not phoning it in, then those are things I'm going to be talking about. Thomas Pomeroy? Do not know that I've ever said hello to you, Thomas. And for that, I apologize. If you're brand new to the lifeboat, it is good to see you. Glad that you're here. But I have been doing this captain thing for a couple of years. And the phoning it in doesn't mean that I didn't love what I was doing. And it doesn't mean that, but what it means is this. We can't get to base camp and then talk about it being base camp for a year. Wyatt, in his email thanking me, said, you know what? I think that this is, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to the effect of, a lot of people seem to get parked at base camp. And when you're in rehab, they don't seem to talk about anything other than you stopping. There definitely needs to be a point where you start to concentrate on the new you. You understand? Ah, you are new. Well, I'm glad you're here. I really am. So, if you're real new, we do this at the 5s, but that would be on the Pacific coast of the United States. 5 a.m. Actually, now it's 4:45 because the sun, I won't miss the sunrises. But 5 a.m. in the morning, basically, and 5 p.m. at night. 2 shows a day. And the shows that I'm talking about are for the members. And people, I spent so much time talking about how to change your life financially. There's no reason I shouldn't be giving that to everybody on the lifeboat, especially since you guys have put up with me not creating a whole lot of content, which is funny, right? Because what do I do? 24 hours a week or something? 14 hours a week. But I haven't been doing a lot of members-only content. That was going to stop. That is definitely going to change. I don't want anything to get clouded as we move forward. It is absolutely essential that you change your life. It really is. It's absolutely essential that you change your life and you become a new you. It's not essential that you become rich. And there are going to be people who watch my members only stuff who think that's what I'm telling you. It is not at all essential that you become rich. But the most important thing for me is that I do not have to think about money. The most important things in life have nothing to do with money. That's the truth. That's a stone cold truth. But if you can't pay the rent, you're not going to think about any of those important things. Honestly, we did a show on creating ripples, positive directions. There are burn centers for children in the United States that have been donated by wealthy people. There are cancer centers in my country that have been built by wealthy people. And there are people that say every day, I get emails from people, you know, the guy only did that because it's a tax write-off. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares why they did it? They took their money and they built a cancer center for kids. If you're saying that they only did that because it's a tax write-off, you're a jackass. Honestly. That's that whole have and have not concept. There's something I would like to get across as well. And we're not going to talk about this a lot on the regular lifeboat, but this is important to me. Alcohol addiction. But I've nearly got it kicked. Fantastic. Alcohol is one of the most dangerous drugs on the planet. Make no mistake. And it is one of the most difficult drugs to get off of because it's everywhere. And it's, listen, a couple of things then real quick. One of the biggest principles that we have here is that hold on. Oh, wow, M. Hunt. That is such a beautiful thing. Thomas, we believe that the opposite of addiction is connection, not sobriety. Sobriety is the act of not doing any substance, but the opposite of addiction is connection. And addiction is the continued use of a substance or the continued practice of a habit, in spite of the fact that that substance or habit is destroying your life. No matter how many bad things come down the pike, you continue to do it. That's addiction. And the opposite of it is connection. The more points of connection that you make, the better a chance you have of staying sober. So one of the things that we believe more than anything else is that you do not suffer in silence. If you feel like you got that feeling where, oh man, you know what? Today's the day I really feel like drinking. You talk to somebody. They don't have to be a sponsor, but they do almost always need to be somebody that understands. Because if you say to somebody that has never been there and done that, and I have the most loving family in the world that never turn their back on me, they're the greatest people you will ever meet. But only one of them is a drug addict. So if I go to my family that doesn't understand, I am a convicted bank robber. I have done the dumbest things in the entire world to get drugs. So after getting out of prison for robbing banks, what did I do? Heroin. You go, how did you not learn your lesson? You went to prison, you saw people get killed. How did you not learn your lesson? Well, because it doesn't work that way. You see, I had a hole in my soul and I didn't know how to fill it. The second time I went to prison, I met somebody that made all of this stuff make sense to me. A saint. A saint, by the way, who's doing life in prison. If the lifeboat looks like it's changed in the last week to 2 weeks, it's because I have been getting more access to Q in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last 3 years. If we're not getting ready for World War III, it sure as hell looks like we are, because he said to me, man, we're building uniforms for every single country in the world like we never have, because the uniforms for almost every army on planet Earth are built in federal prisons. And Q runs one of those facilities. So, yeah, but I've been getting far more access to the man. M. Hunt, I am so glad that you cracked that book today. I really, really am. I am really, really happy. We do double shifts on the boat. Getting paid in mental and gold. I love the way you put that. I really do. I really do. The absolute, you know what, M. Hunt? Cry. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful damn thing. I don't think there's anything on this planet better than tears. The telescopes with which we view God. Nothing wrong with tears. Nothing. Especially tears of joy. They're the greatest things in the world. Caucasian Sasquatch. It's Saturday and I got nothing planned. Fantastic. I have a bunch I got to do today. I was really hoping to take Saturday off, but I mean, not from this, obviously, but from my real my day job. But I am blessed in that since I stopped phoning it in, I have generated a ton of work. So I'm going to have to work all day Saturday, but I'm pretty happy about that, to be honest. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, wow. Not a bad place to start, my brother. Not a bad place to start. Not a bad place to start. Full of hope. Great advice. Great advice. Yeah, Sasquatch, it is good to see you. I haven't spoken to you in a really long time. I remember going by your channel a lot about a year ago. I haven't gone by anybody's channel in a very long time, and I apologize to any content creators. I mean, I've been missing even the people that have been good to me. I lurk. I'm Sasquatch. I only see you doing this one. That is really funny. Thomas, I know that. I know exactly what you're talking about. I have watched it multiple times. And you know what, people? We are screaming toward the apocalypse. I'm not trying to bum out anybody and drive anybody back to usage, but we are on the fast track toward the apocalypse as we speak. You know, we have a lot going on in this world. And I would recommend everybody, Oregon, Thomas, I lived in Oregon for a year and 3 months. In fact, I was there in 2019, 2020 when Portland was burning down. I was in Oregon. There's a little town called Sheridan. I don't know if you know Sheridan, Oregon, but it has one of the nicest federal prisons in the entire prison system. And I was blessed to finally get sent to a nice prison. I did every terrible prison in the federal prison system. I did Victorville. I did Lewisburg, the ones that are like legendary for watching people get killed, raped, stabbed. And then I became a different person. So much so that people actually took notice of it. And I got sent to a place that they call Paradise because it is just so much different than any other prison in the system. Like I got there and it freaked me the hell out. Truthfully freaked me the hell out. I got there and there weren't bunk beds. There were two beds side by side. Right. And I walked in and I looked around and the window you could open. I mean, it had big square bars so you couldn't walk through it, but you could open your window. And I was like, where the hell am I? And on Sunday mornings, they would have cinnamon buns. Of course, I didn't eat any bread, but they would have cinnamon buns and coffee on Sundays. And the different believers would go down there and set up in different tables. The Muslims would be over here and the Christians would be over here. And they would give you a few hours to just spend with one another. They had a turtle pond or Scoob. They had a turtle pond on the compound. So as you're walking around and doing your stuff, there was this little pond with turtles and things in it. It really is one of the most beautiful prisons you've ever seen. Lion of Judah is a great channel for religion. I have not seen that. You used to live in Victimville. I did time in Victimville. In fact, someday I'll show you a great battle scar. I got stabbed in the abdomen, and the shank went all the way into my stomach, and I had to get life flighted off of the compound at Victimville. And I almost lost my life at Victimville. I've been busy looking for a conversion van for road trips. I'll tell you what, the Mercedes-Benz of conversion vans is the Mercedes-Benz. That I have a neighbor in the neighborhood that I live in currently that has what's it called? A Sprinter? It's a Sprinter van, something like that. Holy cow. One day he was outside and he had the door and everything else open. And he saw me sort of rubbernecking and he said, come on over. He's an older guy. And it's got marble countertops and things. That's just unbelievable. It blew me away. Spent the last 2 years working in a security role, one with a private security company, and then a year and 4 months with a nonprofit in a safety and security role for 2 homeless shelters and safe bars. Oh, wow. You know what? While that may be a very rewarding job, I bet you it's a very difficult job. While I was at Victimville, the other prison we were talking about, no joke, in 90 days, we had 3 people who were corrections officers, which I realize is not the same thing. However, it's being around people that couldn't keep their life in order, right? They kind of babysat us. And Sprinter, that's right, Emma. And one day I was sitting and eating breakfast at Victorville and I heard bang. And I thought, that's not a flashbang. Like that was a really loud sound, because you hear flashbangs go off all the time. And it was a CO in the parking lot who drove there in the morning and they come in with a sidearm on. And then they have to check it when they get in, but they travel to and fro always. And he shot himself in the parking lot. And within 90 days, 2 others had done it. It's a tough job. It really is a tough job. I'm looking for an ambulance or a city transit bus. I converted my Toyota Sienna van and lived in it, but some yeah, I knew that story. Sorry about that, photographer. Gotta go, guys. Much love. See you all on deck tonight. You know what? I'm going to be leaving early too, and I'm going to be making an announcement that I'm going to have to start firing this up about 15 minutes earlier again because the sun is coming up over that hill right now, and it's looking like, yeah. So I'm probably going to have to start doing my morning shows instead of me starting at 4:45 Pacific time, it's probably going to have to be about 4:30 Pacific time. If you've spent any time with someone saying you can't watch the sun come up, you'll find yourself never wanting to miss another one ever again. And if I can see the sun come up, I see the sun come up. Because every time I do, new mercies I see. And when that sun comes over the mountain, I feel like there's nothing that can't be done. It cleanses my soul. One ambulance box, half finished as a camper. There are, when I was riding ambulance, in my very first attempt at being a solid individual, didn't last very long. We had the type 1 and type 2. I can't remember which one was which, but one you could go from the cab into the back and one you could not. I think type 1, you could not get into the back from the cab. You had to actually open a door. But the box type that you're talking about, I think that's the type 2. And they were a lot more fun. But I could see converting one of those because there's a crap load of space on the inside of one. You could actually do pretty well in that. You were an EMT hobotographer? Good for you, man. Yeah, I was an EMT, but I stole drugs. Go figure, right? And I never got in trouble or arrested for it or anything else, but they knew. And I knew if I stayed there, bad things were going to happen, so I quit. I have been listening, unable to read comments, but thank you, Tommy, for your inspiration for my day and everyone else. You know what? You guys inspire me every single day. Love sunrises. I work graveyard or did. Not working at the moment, but still on graveyard shift. Yeah, I get it. Thomas, please be here tonight if you can. 5 o'clock West Coast time. You're in Oregon, so 5 o'clock tonight. Tonight's 5 o'clock show is going to be hell on wheels. So you don't want to miss it. I can't really get bold early in the morning. I wake up the entire neighborhood. That would be no good. I am Captain Tommy Scoble. I will be back in 11 hours. And Thomas, if you've never seen one of these, the star of the show makes her entrance at the end of the show because I have promised 2 things to people on the lifeboat. One is that I will always be here to try to help anybody that wants to get sober. And I also promised a cat in the basket. Have a great day, everybody. Make it a good one. But